Look at this next statement. Then the man said, or the angel said, let me go, for it's daybreak. But Jacob replied, I will not let you go unless you bless me. The man asked him, what is your name? That's very important, because now God is getting him to confess something. He's saying, who are you? Would you finally break down and tell me who you are? Would you confess your sins? Would you confess your nature? Would you acknowledge who you are? What is your name? And he says, Jacob. And when he said Jacob, see, the name Jacob means a liar, a deceiver, a supplanter. It's a man who is given to doing everything possible to connive and get his own will and his own way. And so in that moment, God says, what is your name? Confess, declare who you are. Jacob, he answers. And then the man said, your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel. There in that moment is a transformational moment. I'll come back to this in just a bit to describe what that means, what that was all about. Because you've struggled with God and with humans and have overcome. Jacob says, please tell me your name. But he replied, why do you ask my name? Then he blessed them there. So Jacob called the place Peniel, saying, it is because I saw God how? Face to face, and yet my life was spared. The sun rose above him as he passed Peniel, and he was, what was he? He was limping because of his hip. There in that moment, there's a divine encounter. This was a night of struggle with God. It was a night of intense prayer. And through that night, something happened. The stubborn will of Jacob was broken. That night, Jacob was broken by the hand of God in a good way. His hip was wrenched. It was dislocated. It was displaced so that he could no longer walk as he walked before us. He'd always walked as a proud man. He'd always walked as a man who was in control of stuff. He was in control of circumstances. He had the tiger by the tail. He could handle life. Whatever came his way, he could find a way to connive and deceive and work his way around it. But suddenly he's not walking and the arrogance that he'd walked in before. He's walking now with a limp. He's walking as a man who's been broken. He never walked the same way again. It was that prayer meeting at this place called Peniel that changed Jacob's life for the rest of his life. Can I ask you, have you ever had a personal prayer meeting with God that changed you? Have you ever had a personal prayer meeting with God that brought about a brokenness in your life that allowed you to walk differently than you had ever walked before? That allowed God to deal with an area of your character that perhaps had never been dealt with before? There in that moment, Jacob prayed the change me prayer. He prayed a prayer that made the difference in his life for the rest of his life.